back in the days when I was a kid, I was a huge hoarder of money. So I would have so much savings because I'd never spend it. Hi, my name is Melissa Milgate and I work in ad tech. My family values, or what I grew up with, is that if you want to earn money, you need to work hard. So that's kind of the family ethos that I grew up with. And my parents owned a toy business when I was growing up. So we grew up kind of where parents were working, 7 days a week, really, really hard. And my brother and I actually worked in the shop. It was obviously in Australia before child labour laws were a thing. So my mum tells me that we started working in the shop when I was 5. That seems very young, so I'm going to say 8. But I learnt an association with money pretty quickly as a kid because I was on the checkouts at work, serving all the customers. And Mum would always say that the till's always balanced when I was on the checkouts. So this is obviously in the 80s, the days before computers, and I had to calculate everything in my mind with money back and forth. So I guess I learnt a lot about business and how to earn money. And I also remember back in the days when I was a kid, I was a huge hoarder of money. So I would have so much savings because I'd never spend it. We didn't get pocket money, we just earned it for the work that we did in the store. And I remember we didn't travel much growing up, but we did this one trip to Hong Kong. And I was tennis obsessed when I was growing up, and tennis is my passion, still is. Playing 7 times a week. So yeah, I really, really love tennis. And we went to Hong Kong and I bought myself this Adidas tracksuit, which is a horrendous shell suit kind of thing, which then became popular again in the last few years. But it was cost a fortune for me as a kid, and my family was saying, where did you get all that money from? And I just literally hoarded it all. So saving a lot as a kid, and working hard for it. And then there was a period of time where my parents' business got bought out by another company, and the things started to go kind of pear-shaped from there, and the company went bankrupt basically. So our family went from very comfortable, working hard, to no money, which was quite a big period in a child's life. So then we moved to a different place and my parents started again with various jobs. But that was another learning experience about money can come and go. And I guess in a way, I learnt an association with money. It can stress with money, and seeing my parents fight and argue a lot. My mental association with money could be, or was at the time, of quite negative, and without money it can cause a lot of stress. Yeah, so I think the biggest thing for me in money in my life that impacted me and probably changed the way I looked at money until today is my dad left when I was 13, my brother was 10, and watching, without going into detail, watching my mum struggle and having my brother sponsored by a charity has, the lesson I learnt from that is that I need, which is probably not the best lesson, but I need full control of my own finances, and that as a 13-year-old, I was like, I'm never going to rely on anyone else, or I can't trust other people for money, which has actually been a journey for me sort of since then. But it did put me on the path of actually thinking about money at an early age and thinking, okay, what am I going to do with my career? How do I how do I take care of myself, and how do I sort of focus on a potential career where I can make a lot of money. At that point, I was focusing on career equaling money, but that did kind of set me off on a path of studying very hard and just focusing on taking care of myself financially. And so at the age of 14 and a half, which at the time in Australia was the first age you can start legally working, if I look back, actually, when I was kind of reviewing this in advance, I actually had 4 jobs. So I was working at Kmart, which is a retail company in Australia. And also I was working at the tennis club because tennis is expensive, and I was having to, go to these tournaments and play and get coaching and things like that. So I had to pay for all of that sort of stuff. So I was working at a tennis club. I was doing ironing for people as well, which was actually quite lucrative. So charging by the hour to do ironing. So still to this day, I quite enjoy ironing. And then also with our family, we were cleaning houses and stuff as well. So yeah, at a young age, I was doing school, playing tennis and working my butt off. Actually, I ended up, there wasn't a huge amount of savings for me because tennis was so expensive at the time, and because you'd have to travel for tournaments and things like that. So the money I was earning was going towards that, which I don't regret because I love tennis so much. It was like whatever means that I can get there. But also at the age of 17, when I finished high school, moved to Brisbane, which is a bigger city, and had to pay for my own rent and books and university fees and all of that sort of stuff. So all the money went into that. So sadly, not a huge amount of savings, a little bit, but yeah, it was all spent on that. So I kind of went with, I've always had an interest in business. Generally, I studied it and fascinated by financial reports, things like that, business strategy, that sort of stuff. So although that's the case, I bought a property with my brother as my first investment because I kind of felt like that was a safer option. And my brother and I bought in Australia because that was where our heart was. And we bought a place sort of not too far from where we grew up. And it wasn't making us much income, but we were hoping for, the overall capital value of it to kind of have as a long-term investment. Fast forward a few years to 2011 when major floods hit Australia. And those floods wiped out all of my neighbours' homes. So they'd all fallen down the hill because it was a pole home that we had. And so ours was kind of the last standing hill in an area that was kind of just completely wiped out. And that was a real disaster for us because in Australia, the insurance wouldn't cover us to rent, and we couldn't get people in and we couldn't sell it. So we just put it up for auction and just made what we could of it. Didn't turn me off investing in property because, accidents happen, and it made me think about things a little more. So then bought a place of my own in Wandsworth on the river a few years later, and that was with shared ownership. So the shared ownership service or opportunity in the UK was actually super helpful for me. It meant that I could get on the property ladder when I didn't have a huge amount as a deposit. So I'm still in that flat today, 10 years on, and I've staircased, so I've bought it out, so I now own it with a mortgage. But yeah, so I own my own place. So that was my first investment. But I guess that's not really, if you think about investing, that feels like, as you mentioned, safe, because I live in it, and that's kind of where I was at. And interestingly, around March in 2020, I came across Propel. Around the same time, lots of things happened that year, as we all know. The pandemic hit and whatnot, but it was around the time I think I was ready to start investing in more mentally. So I had my own place and I was like, okay, what next? And around that time I was using a coach at work, to kind of do a review of my career. What do I want to do next? You know, what's exciting me? I don't know. I was so confused about many things. And the outcome of that, getting a coach, was essentially that I'm really interested in so many different things, and so I tend to get quite like, oh, shiny thing over here, and oh, shiny thing over there, and I was like fascinated by so many different things. And so the idea of a portfolio career really interested me and got me excited. As much as I love my job and my company, and I do really love what I do, I felt like there's more that I could be doing beyond that. And you know, I earn a good salary, but it was like, I kind of want to be rich, and I want to have more money, you know. So, and I'm interested in other stuff. So around that time is when I came across Propel and joined it, and got a little push to start investing in crowdfunding more properties, because I was sitting on about 4K that I wanted to invest. So obviously not enough to buy anything, but so that I felt like crowdfunding was a perfect opportunity for me to kind of dabble easily in it, relatively low risk. And that did really well. That was in 2020, 2021. And really loved the community that Aisha had built in Propel. Met some really inspiring women that are doing they're doing really great work. And what I loved about hearing some of the honest stories that we listened to was women who were investing in property and development and doing amazingly financially, but also as part of that, having an angle where they're giving back as well. So investing into you know, making money off it, but investing into social housing and things like that. That it really excited me about the group, and it opened my eyes to things that I hadn't thought about before. And again, around that time, it was a big year in 2020, I had always wanted to buy property overseas. I don't know why, it's just a thing. I wanted to own property in many countries and whatnot, and thought about it, dreamed about it really. And in 2020, the property prices in Spain crashed. I had fallen in love with Menorca as an island a couple of years earlier and said to one of my Spanish colleagues, I love Menorca. One day I'm gonna buy there, you know, thinking maybe post-retirement or whatever. In 2020, my colleague in Spain had pinged me and said, property prices have crashed 30% in Spain. I know you're thinking about Menorca, why don't you look now? And he started sending me ads for these amazing homes in Menorca, which were way beyond my budget. So I was like, stop. I promise I'll look if you stop sending me these, because the problem is if I start looking at the amazing places and then look at my budget, I'll be disappointed. So we're in lockdown. I live alone, I'm bored, I have nothing to do, and as someone who's usually very busy, so I was like, well, this will be a good thing to use my time doing. So started looking at loads of properties, researching, buying overseas, and actually reached out to the Propel group to say, has anyone done this before? It's all new to me. No one had, so I kind of taught myself how to buy overseas. And so just looked into how to do it, how to get a mortgage overseas, different areas of the island. I knew I wanted to be in the south, and so I spent months researching and narrowed it down to a few places that I was looking at. And then by August, we could travel there. So I flew out there for a weekend over the August bank holidays and looked at probably about 14 different properties when I was there. Found one that I didn't originally like, my brother loved, but it's essentially, and I ended up buying it. So essentially it's it's probably a bit mean to say to it because I absolutely love it, but it's a villa that is the cheapest, sort of not nicest villa, but in a really nice area. And I've just had no regrets of buying this place. So that closed in end of 2020. And I think that I was actually inspired by being part of that property group, because it just gave me a little push, because I was like, what am I doing? If I'm part of this group and I'm not doing anything, I started to be a bit hard on myself. So I was like, I must do something, you know. And it was just perfect timing to buy the place in Menorca. And it's now a place that I can get away from London to, and I can swim at the beach, and it's my happy place. And I can take my family to it. My friends come all the time, and it's just, yeah, very, very happy with that decision. So that's the property side of it, and I've continued to put, you know, small amounts into crowdfunding and stuff, and starting at £100 kind of thing in some various investments that I've done. So I continue to do those small ones at the moment. And thirdly, diversifying is the safe bet, right? So again, being interested in business. In March in 2020, the share market crashed, and I've always wanted to start investing in equities, and I thought it was a really good time because everything had kind of bottomed out. So I just joined. I had a look around. So my work has emails, and people had recommended a certain platform to use, which was Trading 212. So I could that was really easy to do, just got on, put some money in it, and just started investing in various businesses. And in March 2020, I was like, okay, you know, good idea to invest in pharmaceuticals. Let's do a bit of that. I work in tech, so I invested in the tech businesses that I felt like I knew well. So again, to me, kind of low risk investments, because all of them had kind of dipped. And just started that way, really, and it got a little bit addictive because it started to kind of things started to improve a lot, and because I'd done my research on the businesses, they were improving after that dip, and you don't always get it totally right, but I'm still enjoying investing in various equities as well, so trying to do that as well as saving, putting a little bit of my income into. And actually, a good piece of advice someone told me a couple of years ago is you can invest in your own stocks and shares ISA. So I did that. So my investments are happening on that platform in an ISA as well. Yeah, I do a lot of reading. I love reading, I always have, and I do my research on stuff. So I think investment-wise, I do my own research. I read a lot, so I read a lot of blogs. I sign up to the Motley Fool to learn a little bit more about equities, and listen to a lot of podcasts. But I think being a woman, I probably don't have a community around me like many men do, where you talk about money a lot. So it is mostly self-taught and going on my gut feel, but obviously you talk to family and stuff about the big things and, you know, the big investments and all that. So I rely on family and people like that. But yeah, I wish I had more of a community around me to kind of consult with and whatnot. So I'm now starting to, last year, I made my first business investment. I'd like to do more of that. And so I'm probably looking to join more communities, seeking out more communities where I can talk to people that do this more often than I do, and learn a little bit more off that. I'd love to have a mentor probably who could walk me through business investment, and because it's an area I'd like to do more on. Yeah, over the last 2 years working in tech, my income has gone backwards, sadly. In my career, it's gone backwards by 20% the last 2 years, so I haven't had as much money to play with. So I've kind of just been covering the bills right now, and I wish I was in a better position to invest more. I definitely want to be in a situation where I'm in a financial place where I can invest in the things that I want to do. So I need to actually figure that out, of like what I'm going to do about that. I know I want to be in a better financial place, so I'm just trying to figure out what that is and what strategy that is, or many strategies, I guess. So yeah, I want to be more rich, but I just need to figure out how to do it.